Story 1, Yanni. Hear me out. I have been to hundreds of concerts and have played on the same stages opening for heroes of mine. I have seen every band I have ever wanted to see, some multiple times. But Yanni, holy sweet Christ, that was one of the most epic things I have ever witnessed. From a musician standpoint, everyone on that stage, and there were many, was the best at what they did. It was a marvel to witness. Story 2. This is a tie between Wu-Tang and Rage Against the Machine, and the Black Crowes and Tom Petty. I saw those shows at the same venue about 20 years apart. Story 3. I've only ever been to one concert. I saw Linkin Park last year and I had the best time. Story 4. I saw Finger 11, Collective Soul, and ZZ Top at our local waterfront festival many years ago. We were within 6 or 7 rows from the stage, and every band was awesome. Story 5. I saw Metallica about 2 years ago. I cried for about half of the show, and I have no shame admitting it. I love those guys. Story 6. I saw Brian Wilson, Al Jardine, Blondie Chaplin, and his band in July 2015 with my dad and got their autographs thanks to my high school choir piano accompanist, who was a close personal friend of Brian Wilson. I still cannot believe I saw one of my biggest musical heroes, and I have not gotten over his death last summer. Rest in peace. Love and mercy to Brian Wilson. Story 7. Muse is hands down the most overlooked band of the last 20 years. Matt Bellamy is a god. Story 8. Avenged Sevenfold and Rob Zombie had incredible shows. Korn, Bullet for My Valentine, and Slipknot had some of the most intense pits and energy, so they are my favorites. Story 9. Jane's Addiction played in a tiny airport hangar that should have held 500 people, but instead had 1,000. There were multiple levels of dancers on stage. The place was the most alive I have ever felt. I was in the first row and then thrown back to the 10th row. It was a sea of bodies and sound. Everyone gave every ounce of energy they had dancing, and when we left we were exhausted and drenched in sweat. Story 10. WHFS Festival 2000. Cypress Hill, Stone Temple Pilots, Third Eye Blind, and Rage Against the Machine were all awesome, along with many other bands I do not remember. The Beastie Boys opening for Madonna on Her Like a Virgin tour was amazing at the time. The best, though, was seeing Fishbone open for the Red Hot Chili Peppers at a small bar in Ocean City, Maryland, in 1986 or 1987. It was so funky and incredibly good. Story 11. The Pogues, with Joe Strummer fronting them, played a small venue show. Story 12. I am not a Swiftie, but my wife and kids are. Her concert lasted 3.5 hours. I have to respect that. It was a hell of a show. Story 13. Probably Cyndi Lauper, followed closely by Suzi Quatro. Story 14. Rush, particularly their 40 tour, which marked their 40th anniversary, used short animations and included South Park references. It was one of the last opportunities to see the late, great Neil Peart. Story 15. I saw several Bruce Springsteen shows, but also saw Boston and Sammy Hagar back in 1979. Fabulous. Early Garth Brooks. Story 16. I have seen Clay Aiken a few times. Not only does he have a great voice, but he is always very funny. Story 17. It is a tie between Dave Matthews in Boulder and Dirty Heads at Red Rocks. Story 18. Magdalena Bay will tour again with another album. It will be elite. Story 19. I have never been to a concert, but my girlfriend and I are going to see Blink. Story 20. I saw Deftones and Incubus at Riverbend in Cincinnati, and I also saw Chris Stapleton at the same venue. It's such a nice place, and both concerts are core memories for me. Story 21. King Diamond brings so much energy to the stage, and I love his shows. He is a Dane living abroad, so it is a treat when he returns to Denmark to perform. He is always ecstatic to be home. I have seen him 3 times and cannot pick a favorite. Story 22. Björk Vespertine Tour 2001. She played with a full symphony orchestra, a Greenlandic choir, harpist Zena Parkins, and electronic duo Matmos. We had great seats in row 10. Nothing has come close to that experience, including the 4 other times I saw her. Her Royal Opera House leg of the tour was released on digital versatile disc. Story 23. Damian Marley performed at the B. King Blues Club and Grill in 2005. It was an amazing, small and intimate venue. Story 24. Sturgill Simpson. No opening act. He went on stage on time, rocked his ass off, and played for 3 hours. Nunca. How concerts should be. Story 25. Arcade Fire gave it their all. The crowd was dressed in formal prom attire. At the end, they shot confetti and used strobe lights, which made everything feel like it was in slow motion. That was when the guy I had met at the concert kissed me. Story 26. Oasis last year was amazing. When I was in high school around 2000, Tom Petty and the Black Crowes put on the tightest show I ever saw. I was surprised at how emotional I became when I saw the Avett Brothers in 2021. I am not a huge fan, but my wife loves them and their music reminds me of many of our best memories. The main thing is that it was the first live music I saw after coronavirus disease 2019, and it was outdoors in the summer. The atmosphere and circumstances were very moving. Story 27. Small venue. Less Than Jake, Catch 22, and Real Big Fish at the 930 Club in the District of Columbia. Large venue. Foo Fighters Sonic Highways Tour. Overall coolest, Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Story 28. LCD Sound System 2016 Lollapalooza, or the Killers 2014 Hangout Music Festival. Story 29. The first concert I attended was when I was 9. Reba performed with Brooks and Dunn. Story 30. Laura Jane Grace's solo show was near Homer, New York, in an old church with excellent acoustics. Story 31. Slayer and Overkill, Rain in Blood Tour opening show on Halloween night at the Moore Theater in Seattle, 1986. Story 32. I was never a big Bruce Springsteen fan, but years ago my boyfriend convinced me to go to one of his concerts. I was blown away. He puts his heart into performing and gave multiple encores. The concert lasted 3.5 hours. I went to 2 more of his concerts and they were similar. He earned my respect. Story 33. Dave Matthews Band, Widespread Panic, and Macy Gray in Las Vegas, 2001. Story 34. My first concert was the best. I saw the Kinks in Hampton, Virginia. I have a guitar signed by Ray Davies, a certificate of authenticity, and a photo of him signing it. Story 35. This is a complicated question. My wife and I talk about it often. We have been to hundreds of concerts together. Our life together has been live music, festivals, the Warped Tour, Coachella, basement shows. We have flown across the country for one band's set at a festival. If I had to choose, and I could not, it would be Def Cab for Cutie performing at the Life is Beautiful festival in Las Vegas for very personal reasons. They are also a great band to see live. Story 36. Sigur Rós at the Auditorium and Röyksopp and Robin at J. Pritzker Pavilion, both in Chicago, Illinois, 2016. Story 37. Every Simple Plan show I have been to has the best energy. Story 38. 1991 Monsters of Rock at Castle Donington. Akbimithsi, Metallica, Motley Crue, Queensryche, Black Crowes. It was cool because it was the week before the Black Album was released in the United Kingdom. The Black Crowes had just broken there and they were outstanding. AC/DC was spot on. Check out their video release of the concert. Story 39. Rage Against the Machine at Bluesfest 2022 was amazing. Story 40. Alan Walker, Spring Awakening Chicago 2019. He took the entire crowd on a trip. I can't explain how wonderful and connected we felt with him as our guide. We experienced a journey during his set, beyond words. Story 41. I saw Deep Purple on the Perfect Strangers tour at the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit in 1985. I remember selling much of my Commodore 64 computer equipment to a local personal computer shop to get money for a ticket with my high school friend. I was playing keyboards in a hard rock band with friends, so I was very excited. It was my first concert, and I was amazed by the legendary Jon Lord playing the keyboard on a tilted stand. It was the first time I saw a laser light show, The beams went everywhere. They had a hologram of Beethoven playing on a huge screen. In the 1980s, technology was not as advanced as today, but it was amazing. Story 42. Although I am no longer a fan, being in the third row center orchestra at Madison Square Garden in 1972 for the Rolling Stones was breathtaking. When Mick Jagger was spinning around, we were splattered with his sweat. More recently, Wire in 2015 at the 930 Club in Washington, District of Columbia was perhaps my all-time favorite. My wife and I became very friendly with the band over the years. By then, bassist Graham Lewis invited us to dinner before the show, and we all hung out until they left for the next city at 3 o'clock in the morning. Graham gave me a bottle of whiskey to drink, but it turned out it belonged to Colin Newman. The look on his face when he came into the dressing room and saw me halfway through it was a moment I will never forget. Story 43. The Shins performing Oh, Inverted World, followed by a 1-hour set of other songs. Story 44. Weirdly, it was either the Rolling Stones on Jagger's birthday in Bloomington, Indiana, or Pink Martini at the Crystal Ballroom in Portland. Story 45. I went to a Don Henley concert. Half of the Eagles showed up. I was front row on the rail in the Aspen sunshine with free tickets. It was so awesome. Story 46. Korn and Evanescence toured together, and Amy joined Korn on stage for Freak on a Leash. It was absolutely amazing. Story 47. I saw Beck, Cake, and Garbage all at the same festival in the 1990s. Story 48. Tough to answer. Radiohead in 2008. Streetlight Manifesto after their first album. Big D and the Kids Table at a small campus building in college around 2009. Mac Miller and Wiz Khalifa during Mac Miller's first album. Lupe Fiasco during The Cool. Death Cab for Cutie and the Postal Service for the 20th anniversaries of Transatlanticism and Give Up. Bright Eyes and Cursive together last year. Story 49. Even though I don't listen to them as often anymore, All Wonders concert was an out-of-body experience for me. Absolute 10 out of 10. Story 50. The Blood Brothers reunion show a couple of years ago in Chicago was incredible. Story 51. In 2007 at the Winnipeg Convention Center there was no seating. It was floor only. Cage the Elephant opened for Queens of the Stone Age. In 2016 the Tragically Hip played their final show in Winnipeg. You cannot describe the energy of pure joy and sadness in that arena. Story 52. Iron Maiden puts a lot of effort into their production. They are not like Taylor Swift. They stand above every other rock band. Their music is excellent, as if you are listening to a compact disc. I heard only a few missed notes during a 3-hour concert. Story 53. Iron Maiden at the 2024 Kia Forum. I have seen them 10 times. That show was peak. Story 54. I have seen Eric Church several times, and each time I enjoy the show more than the last. He is amazing live and Zach Bryan is as well. Story 55. Tori Amos is always the correct answer. I have seen her solo with a band and with a string quartet. She always has the audience in the palm of her hand. Who else casually plays 2 pianos at once on stage? Her set lists change every show, which is unique. Glass Animals and Cage the Elephant both blew me away when I saw them perform at a festival last year. Sometimes seeing a band live gives you an entirely new appreciation for them. Story 56. Asian Dub Foundation and the Rolling Stones both performed in the Czech Republic. Asian Dub Foundation was the best. Story 57. December 5, 1989, Rosemont, Illinois. Paul McCartney. It was freaking amazing. Story 58. 2002 Demon Speeding Tour. Rob Zombie, Sinistar, The Damned. Rob Zombie was fantastic. It was general admission, so we got pretty close. Massive creatures stalked the stage, and the bass was absolutely killer. The show was extremely upbeat. People had such a great time that the energy was intoxicating and everyone felt it together. Awesome show. Story 59. Alternating current and direct current at Syrupfest 2003. 9 Inch Nails. The Pixies. Radiohead. Story 60. Queensryche. Operation Live Crime. The Operation, Mindcrime album was great, but the Live Crime album and tour were beyond fantastic. Story 61. Spandex Nation plays at Carnival Court in Las Vegas a couple of days each week as a cover band. Story 62. Stone Temple Pilots performed at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre in Vancouver. Pearl Jam performed at the Commodore Ballroom in Vancouver for fewer than 1,000 people. Story 63. Outkast in 2014, The Weeknd in 2015, Tool in 2019, and Ghost last year. Story 64. Fish, Ghostland Observatory, Tom Petty, further New Year's Eve, Jizz. Story 65. Mariah Carey's Christmas concert a few years ago was incredible. Story 66. I've been to hundreds at this point, but some highlights. Lady Gaga Enigma 2019, the night Bradley Cooper attended. Lady Gaga Mayhem Tour 2025. Van Halen with David Lee Roth 2007. Taylor Swift Eras Tour 2023. Linkin Park Memorial Concert for Chester Hollywood Bowl 2017. Garth Brooks 1997. Fall Out Boy Small Show Great American Music Hall San Francisco 2008. Elton John Petco Park 2025. Story 67. Skrillex in the Rain at Soldier Field. It was my first time doing Molly, and with the lasers overhead glimmering in the rain it was amazing. Also Mumford & Sons, The Killers, The Lumineers, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Pretty Lights, Grizz, Big Gigantic, Zac Brown Band with Willie Nelson and Kid Rock as surprise guests, Styx, Electric Light Orchestra, and Ransom Eli Old Speedwagon. They were all so good. Story 68. If you want an unpopular answer, it is Anders Osborne. Tripping in a Field in Louisiana. Story 69. The Rocket Summer. It was my 5th time seeing him, but it was my son's first concert ever. We were standing in the front, and halfway through the show the singer pointed out how awesome my son was for singing all of the lyrics to every song. He asked my son's name to shine a spotlight on him. We also got a set list afterward. It was an amazing memory we will always share. I also saw Metallica during the 2003 Summer Sanitarium tour. Story 70. Gwar was so fun they made me actually sit down and give thought to what my favorite shows were. Another notable performance was Sean James, who practically played the last song for me because I chatted with him before the show. Soul Coughing was also very notable. They played everything I wanted to hear, a couple of songs I did not know, and a couple I had forgotten about. It was excellent. Daikeju, if you see that this band is coming to your city, go. I do not even actively listen to them, but they are by far the best performance I have ever witnessed. They pull the crowd in tight and get in your face. It is almost forced crowd participation. At the end, they set their instruments on fire. The last time I saw them, I even got to light one of their cymbals on fire. I dislike when people describe something as a vibe. But when Daikeju starts their set, you can feel a change. At different points, random members of the crowd will be given the band's instruments. I am taking in the art, then notice my buddies are playing guitar and bass and a random person is on drums. Then I turn around and the band is back, or I am helping the guitar player stand up on the bar to play there, reaching around her legs to get my beer from the bartender. If you have the chance, go see Daikeju. Story 71. I walked into Audubon Zoo in New Orleans and saw a small audience. When I walked up, Gordon from Sesame Street was there singing Sunny Day. Story 72. Way back in 2000, to warm up for their Bloodflowers World Tour, The Cure announced a couple of small venue shows in the United States. Tickets went on sale midday the next day. A friend and I skipped school to hang out at the Ticketmaster counter in the mall and were lucky enough to get tickets to the Dallas show. We then skipped school again the next day to drive to Dallas and arrive at the club early enough to be among the first through the door and position ourselves at the stage, directly in front of Robert. The first time I saw The Cure was up close and personal in a relatively small venue with a 500-person capacity. It was surreal. Seeing Hum when they toured in support of Downward is Heavenward was a close second. Story 73. The Allman Brothers Band, Atlanta Pop Festival, Byron, Georgia, 1970. Led Zeppelin, Tampa Stadium, 1973. Grateful Dead, Curtis Hickson Hall, Tampa, 1973. Jimmy Buffett, Fox Theater, Atlanta, Two Nights, 1978. Pink Floyd, The Omni, Atlanta, 1987. The Rolling Stones, Tampa Stadium, 1989. The Eagles, The Omni, Three Nights, 1994. Story 74. Before they became a major country act, I saw the Turnpike Troubadours at a punk venue. They brought the roof down with an intense Western punk fusion, similar to an Agent Orange show. It reminded me of how Dwight Yoakam started out in the punk circuit. Story 75. I saw Slayer open for Pantera on the Reinventing the Steel tour in 2001. Dimebag Darrell and Jeff Hanneman were both alive and shredding. Story 76. Jay Black and the Americans played in Miami in 2002 or 2004. I forget. My boyfriend and I were 22, probably the youngest ones there. It was so great. Story 77. My top-tier shows include Viagra Boys on their first United States tour, Ghost on their first United States tour, Nirvana opening for Dinosaur Jr., Liquid Crystal Display Sound System on New Year's Eve, The Grateful Dead at Autzen Stadium about a dozen times, Fugazi 3 or 4 times, Sleep, the Black Sabbath reunion in 1995, The Armed and Cobra Man. Story 78. I saw Slipknot with my best friend, who has since passed. It was a great memory. I still have the sweater he bought me at the show. We had an amazing time. It was my first concert with friends, and it meant a lot that he invited me. Rest in peace, sir. Story 79. It was a toss-up between Queen in 1977 and The Offspring a couple of weeks ago. Story 80. I saw the Hooters in 2007. They have been my favorite band since I was about 5 to 7 years old, and this was the first time I saw them live. Story 81. Panic at the Disco played a small venue near me before they became famous. By the time I saw them, they were playing and selling out a huge venue. It was peak Panic at the Disco. They only had the album A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, and all original members were present. I'll never forget it. Story 82. I listened to Stevie Wonder songs in the key of life about a decade ago. They played and talked for hours. Story 83. Dolly Parton, November 2021. I had been to more than 100 Dolly concerts. This one was really special. We were still in the midst of the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, and I had not seen her in over a year. I was thrilled when she agreed to do a benefit for breast cancer at the Country Music Hall of Fame. Because of the pandemic, she chose not to bring a full band and performed with only an acoustic guitarist. My wife and I had seats at the side of the stage, and it was pure magic. Story 84. Built to Spill, Western Viking Union, Bellingham, Washington, around 2004. If anyone has a taper recording of the song Kicked It in the Sun, please send it. Story 85. Oingo Boingo performed at the Universal Amphitheater 3 times in the 1980s. Everyone danced energetically from beginning to end. Story 86. Rock the Bells 2010. A Tribe Called Quest followed by applause. Story 87. The first one I attended with my wife. Real Big Fish, Big D and the Kids Table and Keep Flying. Story 88. I have seen hundreds, so it is hard to pick, but I would guess it was my first concert attended after the coronavirus disease 2019 lockdown ended. It was The Sword at a small venue. I was grinning from ear to ear the entire time. Story 89. I saw Deftones in a sweaty venue with no air conditioning in Omaha in 2006 and 2007. The energy and the women we were with were incredible. I have seen Rush, Metallica, and Iron Maiden, but that show always stands out to me. Story 90. Yanni's 25th anniversary concert celebrating Live at the Acropolis in San Jose. My jaw dropped the whole time. Story 91. Weezer at the Stone Pony on August 24, 2000. The band had broken up for a few years after Pinkerton. Early internet chat rooms were abuzz with whether the band would get back together. In the summer of 2000 we got our answer when they announced a club tour. Tickets available by calling Ticketmaster sold out in 10 minutes. Stone Pony had been renovated and was not as seedy as before. Weezer opened with My Name is Jonas and the entire crowd started jumping in unison. It was a swarm of 1,000 massive Weezer fans that never stopped moving. I still get chills when I listen to a bootleg of the show. Also U2 at the Sphere. Story 92. As a straight man, I thought the Backstreet Boys at the Sphere were amazing. Story 93. Bad Bunny. I worked a few of his shows without knowing his music, and I became a fan for life. Story 94. Soundgarden and Nine Inch Nails with the Dillinger Escape Plan opening. Story 95. Sasanta 2. Zero was great. Pussifer, A Perfect Circle, and Primus were all on stage at the same time and performed on each other's songs. Story 96. Seeing the Backstreet Boys recently was amazing. The venue was really cool, and there was a nostalgic feeling of seeing the people I grew up with in the 1990s and realizing I was actually watching them. A woman next to me said I was smiling the whole time. I did not notice I was laughing out loud. Story 97. I Have Different Reasons. America 1986. Best Acoustic Show. Metallica opened for Ozzy Osbourne in 1986, featuring Cliff Burton. Black Sabbath Reunion 1996. Judas Priest and Motorhead. Story 98. Television on the Radio performed in 2004 at a venue with a capacity of about 150 people. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.